Hello and welcome to Views on News. I am Jawad Tehami. Pakistan's Interior Minister, Mr. Rana Sanaullah, held a very important press conference today, and he said, let me quote him directly, that India is involved in all sorts of terrorism that takes place in Pakistan, and its activities have gone beyond that of an enemy state. He further said the government has clear evidence of India carrying out terrorist activities in Pakistan, and he was holding this presser along with additional IG Counterterrorism Department Imran Mahmood. The Interior Minister further said Johor town blast was masterminded, planned and executed by the Indian nationals who were holding Indian passports, and Pakistan has also decided to bring its stance before the world and unveil India's face of terrorism. AIG Cdre Imran Mahmood shared the details of how the culprits were apprehended that were involved in the Lahore-Johor town terror attack on June the 23rd, 2021, in which 3 people lost their lives and 24 were injured. And we'll be talking about Indian state-sponsored terrorism, which is a threat to regional peace and global security at the same time. And the second thing we'll be discussing in today's Views on News is a significant visit by Tajik President Mr. Emomali Rahman, who will be undertaking a 2-day official visit to Pakistan on the invitation of Prime Minister Mr. Shehbaz Sharif. And the Foreign Office says, let me quote, the two sides will exchange views on further strengthening bilateral cooperation in wide range of areas and sign multiple agreements and MOUs. And we'll also be discussing the prospective outcomes of this particular significant visit by Tajik President Mr. Emomali Rahman. And let me bring in the panelists to talk more about both of these issues. We are honored to have been joined in the studio by Mr. Kaswar Klasra. He's a senior journalist, and also by Air Commodore retired Mr. Basit or Raza Abbasi. He is a senior analyst. Both of you, thank you very much for your time, for being on Views on News. Let me begin the discussion with you, Commodore Abbasi. Now, another time, this particular network, which has been sponsored by Indian intelligence agency RAW, has been completely busted and dismantled by the Pakistani authorities. It has already happened in the past, but India doesn't seem to have learned any lesson. Why do you think is that so?
India has steadily grown in its arrogance, and rightly so, because they have unstinted support from the world powers. Actually, the Americans, they think that their only threat to their world hegemony is China. And to counter that hegemony, that fear which is a fear to their hegemony, they want to bolster anything which sort of tries to oppose China or professes to oppose China. So they have made this Quad and so many other alliances to prevent China's expansion into the free world. So that is the reason, and because of that, the support they have received from the West has given them economic might, which has again increased their power and arrogance. And thirdly, this Hindutva profession has been so successful that they have already won 2 elections, and if the sort of this process continues, they might well win the 3rd one. They have just shown a very good results in Gujarat state. So this is it. So, but these successes, let me say that these are only short-lived successes, because when your narrative, your policies are not based on your country policies, they are dictated by another power from the world, it benefits that power, and very less of it actually reaches down to your own people.
What about the regional security and also the global security at the same time? Because Pakistan and India happen to be the 2 nuclear armed states. And if such sort of misadventures repeatedly continue to happen from such an aggressor, don't you think there should be a realization among the Western nations and the international community when it comes to securing and ensuring the regional and global security, no matter how much economic might a certain aggressor has got?
Unfortunately, it's not going to happen in near future. We have just seen that just about last week, perhaps, that the American state policy for this against religious minorities. The report came in, and they have excluded India out of it. The greatest perpetrator of all sort of measures against minorities, especially the Muslims, how could not Americans see such violations, such gross violations of human rights in India? And they include Pakistan in it. It's a strange, very strange fact of life. So this all makes me conclude that the present waves, the waves which are at the moment, they are in favor of India, and India will continue. But luckily, Pakistan has the strength, means, and resolve to counter such measures.
Right. Mr. Klasra, this is not the first time the Pakistani authorities, owing to their vigilance and alertness, have busted and dismantled a network which is sponsored by Indian intelligence agency RAW. Already the evidences by the Pakistani authorities over time have been shared with the international community. This time around, a clear-cut evidence, as Mr. Rana Sanaullah Khan says, that Pakistan has a clear-cut evidence. It is going to present this evidence to the international community to unveil India's face of terrorism despite all that happening. And we see that in the past, the classical case of Kulbhushan Jadhav also caught red-handed in the subversive activities in Pakistan. Why hasn't been there any sort of concrete action when it comes to international community's responsibility in order to goad the conscience of Indian authorities? Look, this is a perpetual threat to regional and global security, and there should be a full stop to that.
Mr. Jawad, you have rightly pointed out this is not the first time that India has been involved in Pakistan in act of terrorism. And you have rightly pointed out Mr. Kulbhushan and other things as well. But let me tell you, Mr. Rana Sanaullah has told media, and he's used a phrase, the Indian action have gone beyond enemy. It means there is no doubt India is Pakistan's enemy, but Rana Sanaullah has pointed out it's not Pakistan's enemy, but it's a terrorist state, and if a terrorist state is there, it means it is a threat to the world, the peace as well. So let me appreciate Mr. Rana Sanaullah. He has directly pointed out. Secondly, definitely we have exposed Indian design at international level before as well, but this time India has given a very loose ball to the Pakistani side, and I think Rana Sanaullah has chose designs of Pakistani side as well, commitment of Pakistani side. At this time we will not spare India, and I am sure, and I'm telling you that I have got the information as well. Preparation is all over there, and when we talk about the Pakistani government, they are fully prepared, and they are going to drag India into the international courts like they did in the past as well. But this time Pakistani government is well committed, and whenever PML Noon came into power, we have seen they have dragged Indian into the international forums as well. And now please remember, now we have an intelligent and well committed foreign minister, a right man on the right job, is still there in he's visiting the United States, and according to my information, he will raise this agenda when he sits across the table with the US the authorities, and he will raise it. This time government of Pakistan is well committed to expose Indian designs, and I am sure they are going to do it, and that is really a very good thing.
Right. Commodore Abbasi, when it comes to international community's understanding and the realization that, look, this is a country, it has the economic might, and much of its resources it is also pulling in order to spill the blood of innocent lives, especially in the region, in the neighboring countries as well, especially Pakistan. Now, given those circumstances, it has an economic might. That is why, that is because the international community and the major Western powers are already collaborating on the economic front. But when it has been very much established that it is spilling blood of the innocent people, why can't international community think and realize that it's time to put in some economic sanctions in order to curtail that economic bite, because of which this particular aggressor is turning out to be arrogant more and more with every single passing day?
Reminds me of a saying, perhaps from Napoleon, that morality is on the side of the heavier artillery. So that's what we see in the world, that they know better than us what India is doing, what are its designs, and all these things are very well known to the world community. But still, we don't see a firm voice being raised from any international forum, be it UNO, be it the European Union. I mean, all the power centers of the world look the other way. And so they have a field day, they have a free hand to operate, do whatever they want to do.
But Commodore Abbasi, beg your pardon for the interjection. When we go through the Charter of the United Nations and the purposes and the principles which have been clearly elaborated in that speak a volume that the purpose of it was to ensure the global peace and security. So why and how and when do you think the UN would try to make India to realize that it is a mandate of the United Nations and there are certain international responsibilities on it as well?
I don't see it happening in near future. And what to talk of sort of warning India against its measures, they want to, the world powers want to make him a member of the Security Council. If we talk of United Nations, we know there is a General Assembly and Security Council. So you can raise your voice in General Assembly, which is just a debating forum, doesn't have much of power. But in Security Council, UNSC, whatever the veto-wielding countries want, it happens. And rest, the morality is always cast aside. So it's unfortunate. What is Pakistan's role? Yes, we'll keep raising voice. We'll keep exposing the Indian designs and their machinations to the world, and try to impinge on their conscience that they should side with the truth, the reality, instead of running after false dreams, which I'm sure are not going to materialize. China is too strong for all these people.
Commodore Abbasi, when it comes to the saner voices within India, we have seen the sort of discrimination which is being meted out to the minorities over there in India, including Muslims, Sikhs, Christians and Dalits even, which happen to be from within the Hindu community. The saner voices over there, the intelligentsia, the academia, the journalists and the other people who can raise their voice. Look, the humanity happens to be the first and the foremost. And if their intelligence agency has been caught time and again red-handed for the subversive activities and spilling the blood of innocent souls on others' soils, what happens to be the responsibility of those saner voices?
Some of the saner voices, they raise their voice. People like Arundhati Roy, we hear about them. They always talk against the policies of the present government. But look, a country is recognized by its government and it's by institutions. What are the institutions? The Supreme Court, the journalists, the media, the academia. These are the institutions. Unfortunately, all these institutions have been either enamored by or overpowered by the Hindutva drum beating. The courts, you look at their decisions, they let those people go who had raped a woman, and her case was there for last so many years it was there. They freed him. Look at their media. They are always singing the same tune which Mr. Modi is sort of orchestrating. So, and look at the academia. There again, we saw that brave girl who was saying Allah Akbar and there was this Hindu mob after her. So this is happening in their institutions. And the authorities, all the state authorities and the educational authorities, they are silent about it. So unfortunately, I wish it had not happened, but the saner voices are too few and the opposition is virtually non-existent. Actually, it's normally the opposition which challenges the bad policies of a government. But Mr. Modi and his narrative has been so strong and he's so very well orchestrated that the whole, all these institutions and majority of that country is singing the same song.
Right. Mr. Klasra, you already mentioned a very important point when it comes to taking this particular issue at the international fora, including those platforms that are set for delivering justice to the nation in the comity of it. Now, when it comes to International Criminal Court or International Court of Justice, is there any sort of a mechanism? Is this an option on the table for the Pakistani authorities when such evidence has been collected by the Pakistani authorities, which are clear haircut to establish the fact that India is involved. So is this an option on the table that Pakistan could take this case to the ICC or ICJ?
Well, as I told you earlier, Pakistan, in a couple of years back, Pakistan remains successful in exposing India when it comes to the Colposian network. And that was actually a turning point. And sadly, we could not, pursue that case to the higher level. But I think this is the right time for the Pakistani side, as Rana Sanaullah has pointed out. And the Pakistani government is really determined. And it's not about only the Johar blast. The dismantling of Colposian Yadav's network there in Balochistan, entire Balochistan, was really a success that Pakistan, cashed at the international forum as well. United Nations has to take notice of it, and as I told you earlier, we have a right man on the right job, and as we discuss here, and our foreign minister will be holding, the meeting with the top US officials over there as well. And in the recent past, Pakistan has exposed Indian designs and presented the facts and figures before the American sides as well. And this was perhaps the fact that prompted American authorities to give a strong signal to India when it comes to the slaughter of minorities over there, and also in Indian occupied Kashmir as well. So I think Pakistan has already built the pressure, and United Nations and also the Americans will have to listen to Pakistani side as well, because Pakistan has built up a very strong case, first in Colposian Yadav and other in Lahore blast as well. Lahore blast is a classic example of a terrorism by state, and Pakistan have got irrefutable evidence, and I think Pakistan is not going to spare them, not only at when our foreign minister sit with the American authorities, but also they are going to present the case in the United Nations relevant forum as well. I think this is the right time, and as you told you earlier, right, the Indian has delivered a loose ball, and Pakistan is going to smash a 6 this time as well.
Right. Commodore Abbasi, what about this option of taking this particular case with full vigor to the International Criminal Court or International Court of Justice? Is that viable, and is it even an option on the table for Pakistani authorities? And
it depends on the type of evidence, how strong the evidence is. Of course, the legal experts can comment better on that. If the case is legally very strong and the evidence is tangible, not circumstantial, I think at least a moral victory can be won. If the ICC, International Court of Justice, passes a ruling, it's a moral victory. Although it will not change course of Indians, they will continue because it doesn't have a coercive authority like what the United Nations Security Council has. So, but at least it will be a moral victory. So Pakistan must weigh its options, that is it worth going, and if the case is strong, by all means it should go, and I think they would go for it, like we went for Colposian. We are still sort of facing the consequences of it. So let me say, if you allow me to say, that we can go to any corner of the world outside Pakistan and cry hoarse. Our thoughts will go hoarse, but nobody is going to listen under the present. So what are the options for us? Option for us is to unite and work for the economic well-being of this country. Because if you are economically strong, only then your voice will be heard. Otherwise, we can, on such forums, we can talk about anything.
Right, there are a lot of measures the government is already taking to stabilize and make Pakistan economically prosperous. We are joined by another participant in the show on the phone line by Ms. Naela Chohan. She's a former ambassador. Ms. Naela Chohan, thank you very much for being on Views on News. Today's presser by Interior Minister Mr. Rana Sanaullah was highly significant. Another network of Indian state-sponsored terrorist activities in Pakistan has been completely busted and dismantled. And this particular proof is going to be taken to the international community at different international fora as well. What do you think happens to be the responsibility of international community after such clear-cut evidence now exists and that is going to be shared with them?
I think there's a great responsibility on the international community because we all say that terrorism is a common threat to peace and security of the world. So international community is definitely involved. And it is, I think, a very good strategy by the government of Pakistan to take it at international fora. Until now, we have been trying to resolve problems bilaterally, but that doesn't work. And India has always been sponsoring. Gulbashan Yadav is there. But you see, unlike India, when anything happens there, their first knee-jerk reaction is blame Pakistan. Pakistan does not do that. We did full research, and after having full evidence, did the minister have this press conference in which they stated that they have undeniable evidence of Indian involvement, particularly raw involvement.
Right, Ms. Naela Chohan, now, since this has been done time and again, and these sort of networks which have been sponsored by Indian intelligence agency, RAW, they're serving operatives working in the subversive activities, in espionage and sabotage activities on other countries' soil. Don't you think by this time India should have learnt its lessons? And if it hasn't learnt its lessons, why is that so?
Well, they're emboldened, basically. When you can't resolve issues in a straightforward way, then you use such nefarious activities to create instability in your neighboring countries. India has been pursuing this policy with all the regional countries in general, and Pakistan in particular. So it has to realize that it's, the ambitions it has in international community will not be fulfilled if it continues to pursue such policies which are, very lowly and very, how would you say, very inappropriate for a responsible country to indulge in.
Right, Ms. Naela, when we talk about, in specific, about the Indian intelligence agency RAW, is there any sort of a mechanism which has been chalked out at the level of the United Nations that this particular entity could be held accountable?
Well, at UN level, I don't think any such specific negotiations are going on. At least I'm not aware of any. But of course, it should be done. It should be highlighted that organizations that are indulging in nefarious activities, in terrorist activities, in sponsoring state terrorism should be banned. That is part of UN agenda, and I think that by raising it at international fora, we will be able to make the international community realize how these state agencies are acting in creating instability in the regional countries.
Right, Mr. Naela Chohan, when we talk about the UN Charter, aren't there any provisions which have clearly been elaborated about how to deal with such aggressors?
Well, Charter is a very broad-based, document. And since 9/11, terrorism has been a very important aspect of discussions in the UN, and several resolutions have been passed to prevent terrorism. Even in FATF, you can see anti-money laundering, because RAW is giving money to these people to have these terrorist activities. So I think FATF should also do some study on how money laundering is taking place in India.
Right. Your point is well taken. Ms. Naela Chohan, former ambassador, please stay with us. We are also joined by Mr. Kaswar Klasra, senior journalist, and Air Commodore retired Basit Raza Abbasi, senior analyst. And it's time for a short break. And after we return from the break, we'll be talking about the significant visit Tajik President Mr. Emomali Rahman is going to undertake in the next coming 2 days. And on the invitation of Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, we'll be talking about the prospective outcomes of this significant visit. For that, stay tuned.
England returned to Pakistan after 17 long years. Under Ben Stokes, England are a resurgent side. But they are up against Babur's fighting unit on the Shaheen's home turf. This will be a test of nerves, strategy, strength and composure. Watch the historic Pakistan versus England Test Series 2022 live and exclusively on PTV Sports HD.
Welcome back to Views on News, and we are going to discuss the significant visit Tajik President Mr. Emomali Rahman is going to undertake from tomorrow until 16th of December on the invitation of Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif. The Foreign Office says a range of areas are going to be discussed between the two countries, and new impetus regarding the cooperative partnership between Pakistan and Tajikistan is going to take place. Also, a number of MOUs and agreements are also going to be signed between the two countries. Let me bring in the panelists on this one as well. We are joined in the studio by Mr. Air Commodore retired Basit Raza Abbasi, senior analyst, and Mr. Kaswar Klasra, senior journalist. And on phone line, we are joined by Ms. Naela Chohan, former ambassador. Let me begin the discussion with you, Commodore Abbasi. How significant do you think this visit is, and how bigger a foreign policy success it is for the incumbent government? Pakistan and Tajikistan have held long, friendly, brotherly and fraternal relations, and how these relations have developed over time.
Pakistan has had very friendly relationship with this country, and not only with this country but the whole Central Asian republics. We all remember the day in 92, around 92, when all these states gained independence, and that was a euphoric moment for all of us. And we all were very happy that these Muslim states are finally free from the yoke of Russian hegemony after 70 years. So, but let me say that this feeling actually remained at the stage of feeling only. It does not translate into concrete steps in bonding and cementing that already existing goodwill and friendship. So now that the government has taken initiative, and I think this follows on the heels of Prime Minister's meeting in Sharm el-Sheikh last month, perhaps, with the President of Tajikistan. And this is an opportunity to once again sit down. There have been a plethora of MOUs lying in the Foreign Office. They are just pieces of paper. If I were to give an example, I remember the expectation which was raised when the Saudi prince was here and we signed a $20 billion refinery deal, something MOU on that. That is still a piece of paper. Yeah, so I think our emphasis should not be on these pieces of paper. An effort should be made to translate these MOUs, which are non-binding, into binding agreements, and then making procedures to implement those, because they're
Commodore Abbasi, regarding the signing of the agreements, the concrete agreements between the two countries, there is a trade agreement that is going to be signed between Pakistan and Tajikistan during this particular visit, which has already been approved by the cabinet on the advice of the Commerce Ministry. So that's a huge step in the right direction.
Yes, I was going to come to that this is a move forward. That from MOU, you have sort of been promoted to the agreement stage. What is the significance of this trade agreement? It gives you an opportunity to let your goods pass through each other's country without customs and tariffs. So this is a very important, rather the most important tool in promotion of regional trade. Pakistan has a great opportunity in Central Asian republics, as I just said, because of our historical affinity with them. But look at what we have done so far. India was running 58 flights from New Delhi to the Central Asian states. Pakistan had none. What is the flight time between Pakistan and the capital of Tajikistan? It's 42 minutes. And from New Delhi, it's 2.5 hours. And so Pakistan has a great opportunity. We are so closely connected. And we have this Gwadar airport coming up. Main interest of the Central Asian states is to let their products go out of their country, to export them, and for them this offers the shortest route.
Right. There's already been interest which has been expressed by the Tajik authorities regarding taking the dividends out of this particular usage of the ports, especially in Gwadar and Karachi. Mr. Klasra, what future prospects or the dividends lie ahead for Pakistan and Tajikistan when it comes to taking those from the regional connectivity, as Commodore Abbasi has also mentioned? Very important.
Well, Tajikistan is, a window to Central Asian state. And unfortunately, Pakistan and Tajikistan, both are brotherly countries, but their relationship never translated in terms of, the trade agreement, beyond the trade agreement. The bilateral trade is only 170 or 180 million, if I am not wrong, annual. That is nothing, I think. And Tajikistan is a natural resourceful, a country. Pakistan can take benefit of that. And as my colleague has rightly, pointed out, it's a shame that India is, running a number of, the
steps
flights
are being taken in the right direction, especially when this particular transit trade agreement is going to be signed.
Oh, you're going to sign tomorrow. It has great significance. Definitely, I think Pakistan and Tajikistan has already signed a memorandum of understanding when it's come to CASA 1000, and Pakistan and Tajikistan can play a very good role in, helping Pakistan to overcome its energy crisis as well. And it is a good thing. And also tomorrow, when they will be sitting, or day after tomorrow, they will be sitting to sign the agreement, and it will be a good, the partnership. And definitely, the Tajikistan president, according to my information, is coming with dozens of, the noted industrialists and the merchants with them, and all of them will be interested to take great benefit from the Gwadar airport, the Gwadar port as well. So it means they are going to sign a very good type of agreement, and both governments of Tajikistan and Pakistan will take great benefit of that.
Right. Ms. Naela Chohan, when we talk about the relations between Pakistan and Tajikistan in diplomatic terms over the years, how do you think these have developed, and what future prospects do you associate with this partnership?
Well, Tehami Saab, let me tell you that when these republics had become independent, I was one of the first directors dealing with Central Asian Republic in the Foreign Office when we established this division. So I have been involved with it since 92, 93. And I can tell you that Pakistan had played a very important role in inter-Tajik peace talks, because Tajikistan was a very unstable, politically unstable country. We played a very positive role in that. And then, of course, the Central Asian republics, we must see them in the right context. They were basically they were former Soviet Union. And when they became independent, they did not have infrastructure to deal with the rest of the world except Moscow. So to act as sovereign independent states, they started looking for outside options. And Pakistan is the nearest country to Tajikistan. There's just one Wakhan corridor, and between that, which is just 10 kilometers, Pakistan and Tajikistan are very close, and Pakistan has played a very important role in Tajikistan, in its peace, in its development. And so with due respect to Air Commodore Sahab and Klasra Sahab, the MOUs and the agreements that are signed are not just papers. They are basically guidelines on how relationship needs to be followed through. Their implementation does take time because of infrastructural issues, because of political changes in the countries, and so on and so forth. But as far as Pakistan's relations with Tajikistan are concerned, they're very strong. And we have cooperated, even in SCO. Our Prime Minister had met President of Tajikistan, then in Sharm el-Sheikh, Basit Sahab had said, and in various platforms we have been meeting, even in ECO, we are working together. So our cooperation at regional level, at international level, and bilateral level are strong. Talking about flights, earlier on, when I was Director Central Asia, we were working on PIEF flights because at that time, trade was not easy. They did not have banking systems. They did not have infrastructure. So we were helping them. And at that time, we were talking about suitcase traders because people were bringing goods from Central Asia in the suitcases, and they were taking, and in that, Tabanis had started their flight to Central Asian Republic. So work had been done. It is not that nothing had been done and that it is just paper. It is not just paper. So much work has been done. But we need to further fortify. We further need to benefit from the political goodwill that exists. We can also talk about CASA 1000. Tajikistan has played a very important part in this. CASA 1000 is going to be discussed in this meeting as well. And Tajikistan is basically our bridge to the remaining of the Central Asian republics because, as I said, it's the nearest. And we are the bridge for Tajikistan and the rest of Central Asian republics to the rest of the world through Gulf, through, through Gawad. So we are bridges to each other. We complement each other. Our interests complement each other. So I would look at it in a very positive way.
Right, Ms. Naela Chohan, very elaborately you've described how the relationship between Tajikistan and Pakistan has developed over time, and a lot has already been done, and certain other things need to be explored as well. When you mention CASA 1000 project, we know it is of immense importance for Pakistan. The surplus hydroelectricity is going to be transferred to Pakistan, and it is estimated to be completed by 2023. Do we expect or see similar sort of mega projects between Tajikistan and Pakistan in the future as well?
I suppose they will be exploring all possibilities, not only on bilateral level, but also under the regional arrangements like ECO and SCO. So I'm confident that there are many opportunities that the two sides are going to further explore, as well as follow up on the earlier agreements that had been signed and where the bottlenecks exist. Because we must not forget that instability in Afghanistan has affected our activities with Central Asian republics. So Afghanistan is also an important element in the progress of our relationships with Central Asian republics. So I don't think we can simplify and say, oh, these are papers lying in the Foreign Office. No, these are not papers lying in the Foreign Office. A lot of consultations have gone and are continuing, and inshallah we will further improve on it. Thank you.
Right, Ms. Naela Chohan, your point is well taken. Please stay with us. And Commodore Abbasi, when it comes to, as Ms. Naela Chohan has mentioned, a very important point regarding Afghanistan. So do you think there happens to be a shared understanding of the leaders of Pakistan and Tajikistan when it comes to joining hands in order to try to avert that economic and humanitarian crisis that is there?
I'm sure there is. That's why he's coming all the way for discussions. But I would like to share the optimism which the ambassador has expressed. But the realist in me sees the papers. These countries have been free since last 30 years. We are a bridge between them. We have been a bridge since last 30 years, but no one has traveled on this bridge. So if a thing lies unactioned for indefinite period of time and there is no tangible progress, I would call it a piece of paper. So that was my point. So as far as this present situation is concerned, there is no doubt that this, even this trans-trade agreement, it is a game changer, because not only the Tajik goods would be moving to Gwadar port and abroad, but even we will have access to the Tajik markets and the markets in Central Asian states. And this can be a future corridor into leading up to Moscow even. So all these opportunities are there. It's visible to anybody who can read the map. But these possibilities have been to be translated into positive, concrete actions which are time bound. You cannot indefinitely grope in darkness. You have to come into light and move forward. And that's what this we see this opportunity coming up tomorrow.
Right. What about Afghanistan in order to avert the humanitarian and economic crisis over there? How both the countries can join hands and have develop more shared understanding about that?
That's right. If you see the demography of Afghanistan, there's a significant group of Tajiks. A significant portion of their population is Tajik. So good understanding between Tajikistan and Pakistan, and good understanding between Pakistan and Afghanistan can lead to a sort of greater harmony between all these countries. And if we work together, and all these opportunities have only one end result: economic prosperity. That's what all these efforts are for. And this is a win-win situation for everybody. Everybody has a stake in it. Everybody has a benefit to draw out of it. So we must work for it, or we must translate these agreements and these statement of intents into actions.
Right. Mr. Klasra, how Pakistan can benefit from the hydroelectric prowess? We've seen the Kaswar 1000 that is already underway. Do we see or expect similar sort of mega projects in future, and Pakistan taking the benefit from that?
Well, Pakistan and Afghanistan both needs energy. And I was there in Afghanistan in October 2022. And I personally, observed that this country lacks resources, and electricity was a major, problem. And I think Kaswar 1000 can, to some extent, remove the hurdles in the way of energy for both for Pakistan and, Afghanistan as well. And one thing that is really important is that the Taliban's government has been successful in maintaining law and order across Afghanistan. And like my colleague has pointed out, the Tajiks are only, the Tajik diaspora as only, force left in, Afghanistan in the way of Taliban government as well. If Pakistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan and, all these countries can sit together and decide to move forward, then it means the law and security situation, the energy for both Pakistan and Afghanistan will be, resolved, and this could be a very good, beginning both for Pakistan and Afghanistan.
Right, your point is well taken, Mr. Kaswar. Klasra, senior journalist, thank you very much for being on the show. And we were also joined in the studio by Air Commodore retired Basit Raza, Abbasi, senior analyst. Thank you very much for your time, for being on the show also. And on the phone line, we were joined by Ms. Naela Chohan, former ambassador. Thank you very much for your time, Ms. Naela Chohan, for being with us on Views on News. Really appreciate your time as well. So this particular visit happens to be be of utmost importance and significance when President of Tajikistan, Mr. Imam Ali Rahman, is going to undertake two-day official visit to Pakistan. A number of agreements and MOUs are of course going to be signed between the two countries. Much has already been done between the two countries when it comes to bilateral cooperative partnership between the two countries, and there are many areas which need to be yet explored between the two countries, and this particular visit is of course going to give a new impetus to the bilateral relationship between Pakistan and Tajikistan. With this note, we come to the end of today's Views on News. Until the next one, take good care of yourselves.